What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here, and today's episode of The Truth in This Art is sponsored by a new online art platform called Fire and Bliss Creative. Fire and Bliss is the first art platform that I've seen that focuses on the art of the LGBTQ plus BIPOC and ally artists exclusively. And I have to say, the pieces are amazing. Whether you're looking specifically to add diverse art to your collection, or you have a space that needs a bit of updating, every single print on fireandbliss.com has been created by a diverse, independent artist who maintains full control over their art and their profit. I worked with Fire and Bliss to curate a collection of my favorite pieces, like Somewhere Blue by Wodrich Francois. Shop my favorites at fireandbliss.com/truth and get 20% off your first purchase at Fire and Bliss. Again, that's fireandbliss.com/truth and use the code TRUTH for 20% off your first purchase. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thanks for listening. Today, I am interviewing an abstract and conceptual artist. His aim is to create immersive spaces utilizing visual, audio, and light as his mediums. His creative explorations involve shedding everyday expectations of what an artist is meant to be. Please welcome Kameron Robinson. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going? What's up? Thanks for the great intro.
Oh, thank you. It's going well. It's going well, which is a lie because I told you something completely different before. No, but thank you for making the time to hop on and for us to have this conversation. So I think we have a few overlapping friends. I feel like Josh is a friend.
Yeah, Josh is that's my homie, close friend.
I told him an interview with you was coming up, and he was like, "Hell yeah, I'm looking forward to that."
Yeah, we're gonna see what happens. Sometimes I can get controversial. We just gotta see what comes to my brain. I'm kind of like no filter guy, so.
I mean, I'm the same way. It's all about no filters and being controversial. So stepping back, for those who are undipped, can you give us a little bit more about your background, where you grew up, and what would maybe some early visual experiences from your personal history that led you into art making?
All right. Yeah. I guess to take it all the way back to like the 90s, I was born in the 90s, 1994. So I'm 28 right now. Just had a birthday. And, like any typical kid, I was drawing a lot. And I guess the difference for me was my mom, she always gave me sketchbooks. So early on, I kind of was just making stuff. And I would definitely say super early influences were some of those trips to Six Flags, Disney, and seeing the characters in the parks, trying to recreate those. Of course, cartoons. I was really into The Simpsons as a kid, and that's probably middle schoolish. I was into the Simpsons, anime, early animes like Naruto, simple stuff like that. And then let's see, trying to really structure this. So I moved so I'm from Baltimore. I'm from West Baltimore. I guess in my mind, it's actually kind of jumbled up because I didn't live in one place, that long. Me and my mom, we moved a lot. Single mom raised me. I have a pretty great, family structure, so I don't want to take away from that. Right. They were there for me as well, of course. But yeah, my mom raised me, and she's a very independent woman. She always wanted her own shit, she was always very kind of serious about that. So we always had our own crib. And, so I grew up in different places in the city. I lived over East. I lived on the West Side. I lived in the county, in a lot of different places. So, in 99, I actually moved to Atlanta. So I was living in Atlanta, in Buckhead area in Stone Mountain. So back then, we were staying with my Aunt Susan, and my aunt Decima, my aunt Seema, she was into woodworking and watercolors. So she would, like, whenever I would go to her house, which was pretty often, I would usually do two things. I was either playing like pickup sticks or just like one of those random kid games. Cause it's like the 90s, early 2000s. I didn't have like a lot of video games, like no iPhone, no iPad. So I was like playing physical games. Like I had my Beyblades, Bionicles, I forget what they're called, Legos. I was always doing that, or we were doing like craft time. And craft time was like the fucking coolest because I just feel like I was always like learning something new from her. Mm-hmm. So she's an artist, like an artisan, and she kind of dedicated her life to that. And she lived in New York, like in the 80s. So I guess like when there was like a lot going on here, I need to ask her more stories about that now that I'm older. But yeah, I would say she had a really big influence on my, like early like mind, and just thinking like, oh, I could do something with this art thing. So fast forward to like later 2000s, I moved back to Baltimore. I went to Maths, it's like a charter school. Mm-hmm. And I was there first I went to FSK, Francis Scott Key, which is like in the harbor. And I was living like downtown at the time. And I don't know why I'm talking about all that, but it's hard. I feel like I'm telling the whole story.
There you go.
So yeah, I was living downtown for a while. And then we were, during that time, I was trying to go to like art school, but for cooking. I got really like kind of into cooking. I was a fat kid. And I remember, I think it's Carver, but Carver out Towson, they had like a cooking program, and to get in, you had to be able to like shave a potato or something like that. But I ended up never like applying, which is like kind of a dead end in the story, but, I'm on tangents. I'm so sorry. Ultimately, my point of these stories is just saying that like I moved a lot. I went from living downtown, and then I moved to the county, and I finished high school in the county. And by the time I graduated high school, didn't really know what I was going to do. And I picked up a camera. So that was really like my first, I suppose, like declaration as like an artist. Yeah. And I made my first few dollars using a camera. So my dad always had a camera. He was always taking pictures, and he's a photographer in Baltimore. He has a studio called Robinson Studios. And my dad's always taking pictures of us as kids, as like teenagers. So I had this whole catalog and shit. And, yeah, I picked up a camera. I got the exact same one as him, and I'm sure he was pissed about that. He'll never admit that, but I'm sure he was like, yo, why you copying my camera? But honestly, like I just was going for what felt familiar and what it felt like I could learn. And I'm an autodidact, so I teach myself pretty much anything that like I get really good at. I'm self-taught. Or good by my standards, better than like not knowing anything. So picked up a camera, T3i, that's what I had, Canon. Taught myself all these different things about like ISO, shutter speed, how to do Lightroom editing. I learned Photoshop, and I was just learning all this from YouTube University. So very like DIY, very just like every time I got home from, I think I was working at Levi's in the harbor at the time. Every time I got home, I was just hitting the YouTube, like watching like 3 hours of content, watching just different channels to learn about cameras. Yeah. And I was making a little bit of money from it. And then just by doing like event photography, people would see me with a camera. I got known for having a camera at UB and around like that Midtown area, Micah. And I kind of became more of an events photographer, but I was really interested in street photography. And I kind of like was inspired by like Tiananmen Square, kind of those like photos that I didn't have any education around, but I had seen them and I was like, yo, like, I want to take pictures like this. Like, and from what I had learned, the people who take pictures like that, it's just usually a random person on the street with a camera. It's never really a photographer. So anyways, that's kind of my first like exposure to being I guess fine artist. And I guess I got bored. I don't know. I guess I got bored and the camera thing just kind of faded away, stopped getting dopamine from it. And I found programming, which is like kind of, a lot of people see it as like left brain, right brain. I guess right brain is more analytical. And a lot of people see this coding thing as analytical. And I learned how to code in 2013. I had some exposure earlier because I graduated from Milford, and I finessed my way. I'm a wordsmith, so I finessed my way into a C++ class where I did not belong. And honestly, like the teacher made it very clear that I didn't belong there. She was like very, let me choose my words wisely.
She unfinessed you.
She constantly showed me that I was a finesser, and just, you know, she would just say condescending things. And I even recall her saying that I would never be a programmer, which is interesting because I do that as a full-time profession now. But anyway, so I got into programming because I found out, you know, MySpace, that type shit. But let's keep it real. Everybody was copy pasting. I'm going to set the record on people saying that they code on MySpace. Come on, bro. You was copy pasting. You was changing.
Absolutely.
Stuff. Yeah. And that is a good entry, like dipping your toes. But I would say, you know, once I like learned about this thing called hackathons where people were going and they were building like crazy shit in the weekend, I started going to those, and turned out to be this crazy creative process where like you would meet people at the thing and everybody's like hyped up on sugar and fucking energy drinks and the promise of winning some esoteric prize. Who knows what it is? Bitcoin, Ethereum. We're talking 2013 early. So they were giving this shit away. Like, oh, if you can use this API in a creative way, you'll win 4 Bitcoin. So I never won any Bitcoin, but I did own Bitcoin back in the day, and I used it to buy food, which is a whole another sad story because I could have had some coin. But anyways, just like my whole journey has been kind of a roller coaster, but I feel like it's been in between whatever helps me kind of express how I'm thinking and what I'm thinking about. My first hackathon project was like an Instagram extension. This was like back when Instagram didn't have maps for photos, but photos, they always had like EXIF data, the data attached to the photo. And they always had location, like geolocation. So I just would like, I wrote a app that would look at all the photos and then put them on a map, just like a Google map. So I combined a bunch of shit, and I was at College Park, and that was my first, I guess, creative coding experience. And then, I feel like, I'm just the person, I'm very much like all over the place. I feel kind of like I haven't really locked myself into like one thing. And I think now where I'm at in my career, fast forward to now, from college, fast and forward, 5 years, I met my girlfriend around 2013, 2014. And she was studying art history and journalism. I can't leave her out of the story. She was studying art history and journalism. And at the same time that she was studying art history and journalism, she decided to become a curator, and I decided to become a programmer. And we would always talk about art, and, she was kind of giving me like all this arts education. And that's like really when I learned like, oh shit, like, holy shit, this is like, art is kind of like, it's either famine or feast. You see like people, starving artists or you see like these artists that are doing really well. There's people in the middle, and there's people who have like really amazing careers. But, I think when I started learning about it, I was learning about a lot of these like bigger figures, like, that might not have a lot of money, but get a lot of exposure for their work, etc. And, fast forward, I'm still with the same woman, Chiara Cristina Ventura. And we, where we're at now, she's been pushing me a lot to focus on my own art. And I started doing that more. I'm doing it, making abstract work. I told the whole fucking story.
No, love to hear it.
It was quite long. So thank you for, I guess that's your job. It's your job. You like, listen, usually I would be cut off by now.
Nah. And that's the thing. Like, I think people have to share their thing, and you have some overlap, and we'll probably talk off mic about that. But there's some overlap. I'm seeing very similar story. I know someone very personal that has a very similar story as you, but he's at this transitional stage, kind of in that, I don't know if you're going to be a coder kind of spot. Yeah. Kind of in that, hey, I was that Carver. Oh, he's younger.
Oh, where?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I look similar.
We cousins? Nah.
A lot of light skin energy in the county. I don't know.
Chill.
So let's talk about like processes, materials, techniques. What are you ultimately doing to make your work? And is there a connection between your message and the way that you make your art?
Yeah. So all my work is process work. And I feel like, that's kind of like the point of my story, is that like, it's a process, and you're like on this journey. You don't really know exactly like where you're going to end up. Like I was working with light in 2011, when I picked up that camera, and, paint it's just light. It has its own dimensions. It has its own materiality. So I would say with the current body of work that I'm focused on, which is my dye work, a large idea is about, I have to gather my thoughts, but so the current body of work, I just had a show called Sun. And in that show, I showed, let's say roughly like 10 or 15 pieces. It was my studio. And all those pieces are works that I made over like the entire summer. And, during the summer, I was utilizing the sunset as my main subject. So I noticed a thing while I was in LA visiting family, and I noticed kind of this phenomena where everyone would, when they saw a beautiful sunset, they would post it. And for years, I kind of like had been documenting sunsets because it just always gave me a lot of good feeling, and just that reset energy, like new day, that energy. It's just something about it that's like, it feels like the earth is it's a public service announcement type shit. Like the sunset, and it's beautiful. It's like trying to tell you some shit. So I just was like, man, like I need to like filter this into some body of work. Yeah. So I started working on what I suppose now is called the Sun series, where I've been making these varied size tapestries. They started off as 5 foot by 2 foot. So I was making them specifically in the shape of devices to pay ode to like in that 9:16 aspect ratio. So I was paying like homage to how I've been capturing that sunset, which was through my phone, and how it gets shared. So I was just thinking about that conceptually. And then, I started making the larger tapestries to kind of encapsulate the viewer and kind of give you that all type of moment. And then also utilizing like colored LED lights to shift the experience. And in the show, we also did these night and day meditations where we invited viewers to come and sit with the sunset and, in essence, energetically charge, my work, put these good vibrations and intentions into the work. And, coming out of the pandemic, that type of like meditation, but collective meditation space has been like hella important. You know, like, I don't know how you feel when you're near people that you can just relax with.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just been a different, you know, especially after quarantine, like it was such a refreshing and good experience. So my work is all made with, you know, dye off shelf. And, you know, it's pretty straightforward how I make it. It's just I use different timings and different folding techniques to produce like certain colors and patterns. And then I have a new body of work I'm working on, still doing more texture and stitching to experiment with, you know, more information encoding, I suppose you could say.
I love it.
Yeah.
So actually that what you were saying there kind of, because like pretty much in it, you're answering a lot of my questions already, which is great.
Right.
But I'll say, I got two questions that I think are kind of back to back. So that kind of piggyback off what you were just talking about. So you mentioned the kind of the meditative state of one of the elements of one of the recent exhibition. How do you show yourself tenderness and take care of your mind in the midst of your creative process? Because that can be a thing. Like, I know for what I'm doing here, I'm like, man, that was a trash episode. Damn, I asked some stupid questions. And I don't give myself that grace sometimes. And, you know, or it's like, well, I could have asked this could have went smoother or what have you. And I would imagine there's similar things for other artists and what they're doing. Right. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like for you? And how do you know, like kind of take care of yourself mentally and give yourself like that grace and that tenderness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I was listening to the question, the first thing that came to mind was actually the process of getting into the studio and the process of getting work out while I'm there. And, you know, that experience of self-talk and like reflection, et cetera. Like, so I guess to answer the question directly, it's just like a curt, you know, like quotable answer. I suppose, damn, dude, I don't even know how to answer it. It's a hard question, honestly, because I feel like the work is what softens me, you know? And I feel like
Gotcha.
The work is me saying to myself, especially with in what it is, what I'm using, and trying to make something that feels a bit softer and like less tense and something that I can just sit with and feel calm. You know, I'm purposefully making something like that because I feel like, you know, as the man who I am very hard on myself. You know, I am very like, let's fucking go. Let's get this shit. You know what I'm saying? So, but I don't need everybody to know, you know, like you can look at like the pretty stuff and like the results and all of that. But, you know, I can be very hard on myself and I can be very hard on the people that are close to me. Cause you know what they say, you are the 5 closest people to you. So, I don't really want to shed my people. I want them to keep on rising up with me. And, you know, when I go in that studio, bro, like, it's like, you know, I put that punching bag down, you know, and that reflective punching bag, I try to put that down and I just say to myself, like, yo, I'm at a place now where I can take that energy and transmute it into something more positive that I can then look at and say, okay, well, I can make this too. And I can identify with that, you know, versus if I'm doing some project and you begin to identify with like this mindset of like, oh, if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not, you know, I feel like it's hard to articulate what I'm thinking, but, you know, you start to identify with that no sleep culture. If I'm sleeping and I'm not working hard enough, and it's like, I'm trying to like create things that help me identify with other ideas that aren't just, you know, set into what the culture has set up for men of color, you know, you know.
No, I agree with what you're saying, what you're getting at there, because I think I used to have this joke about working in an office environment. I have a data background, and that whole it's only 3 types of black men that can be here in this office. And I started breaking down, and I was with a group of other black guys. And they were like, "But it's 4 of us." I was like, "A couple of y'all copies then." And they were like, "Yo, you're bugging." And it was like, "Which one are you?" I was like, "I don't fit into any of the buckets. That's why I'm an outcast." And they're like, "Wow." And I was like, "I'm not going to be here much longer because I don't fit into the approved thing that I'm supposed to do." And I think that extends as to, you know, like if I were to do this podcast or what have you, and I would let outside forces get in my head and tell me how I'm supposed to go about it, it would be a much different thing instead of me going back to the purpose of it. And I think that's what you were touching on. The purpose of me doing this is to kind of show like, yo, we got talent here. It comes out of spite. It comes out of like, yo, Trump said some wild shit about Baltimore. I didn't like that shit. So I'm going to have people come on and talk about, you know, what it is to be a creative, what it is to be a small business owner for Baltimore, and it really reveal some of that truth about the city. And, you know,
yeah, man, shout out to Baltimore.
Absolutely. When I feel like I'm getting away from that a little bit, I have to rein myself back in and remind myself
of the why.
That's where, that's where that punching bag thing comes in too. And it's like, yo, you chasing cloud, you doing this, you doing that. I was like, nah, let me go back. Let's reset it. Why are you doing this? And, that's that North Star, if you will, that beacon, that totem from, to use the Inception reference.
Yeah, I had an artist. I had an artist actually ask me, you know, why I was making artwork, and he said to get a bag. Like that, he kind of like, you know, I don't know this guy, but you know, we had just met, and I don't think he said it in a negative way, but I think, you know, in the scene, some people do, you know, use a mixture of cloud gimmicks. You design a certain look for yourself, and then you use that to your advantage, which is a strategy, you know, like at the end of the day, you know, it's a strategy, and it works for some people. And he asked me, he said, and I'm not saying that's what he did, but he said, why you make art? You chasing the bag? And I was like, nah, I actually make art to like try to change people's minds and help them see the world from different perspectives, and to create conversations and to bring people together, you know. And I recognize that, you know, it's a responsibility, you know, like of somebody like you, that's creating a podcast, you know, art, you bringing you putting on these people who you see something in, and, you know, that's the responsibility of an artist, is to show people that they're missing something. And I take that responsibility very serious. So, you know, I think the message in my work is look the fuck up, you know, be present, like look around, you know, don't just look at the negative shit, you know. You know, obviously there's a lot of negativity in this world, but, you know, keep looking at something that's more powerful than all of that. And I think that nature is one of those things. God is one of those things. So that's it.
I remember looking at this interview. Like I have a birthday that's coming up. We're in different tribes, but similar tribes. You're a Cap, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm a cusp, Cap Aquarius, and we're great. But it was this interview I remember a little while back from like J. Cole, and they were asking him, I think it was like Breakfast Club or something, and they were like, yo, like, when will you be satisfied? Like, pretty much, what are you chasing? And they were like, money, this, that, and so on. He's like, I'm chasing love. He's like, I'll never, and it's something I'll never really get. So I'm always going to be kind of chasing. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that's the way I kind of start looking at these things. When you can actually say exactly what you're looking for, but not something that is vague. Like, you know that you're chasing something. You know that you're going for something. You're challenging yourself. You're looking at yourself as competition, whatever. But when someone's like, I'm looking for a specific dollar amount or a specific thing, that it a little bit inside, it makes me feel bad. It's like, oh, no, you gotten caught up, and I'll leave that with this. I remember it was a job I was in. I was leaving it. And I knew I was leaving it, but I didn't reveal that I was leaving it yet. I was still doing all my work, doing all the coding stuff, being the black guy in the office. And I just remember they knew they were in a bad spot, and I was the senior data person, and they asked me, what can we give you? it was nothing better than telling her, nothing. It's nothing you can give me. And I said it really matter of factly, not like an asshole, but I just felt like freedom, because for me, and I think you're balancing the same thing. The day job is one thing, but the creative thing is the other, that if it makes it feel worth it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely gives you something else. Yeah. Right.
So when this is a weird way I wrote this, when you're feeling creatively dry, that's such a weird way to say that. How do you refill or rediscover that inspiration? How do you refill that cup?
Hit the gym, do some push-ups, fucking do it. I built a new runway, man. Like,
get at it.
People try to, go from 0 to 1 and, or should I say 0 to 100, but you need to be able to go from 0 to 1. So I do a lot of going from 0 to 1. I'll do a new thing, like right now I've been learning the didgeridoo. And that's like,
really?
Yeah, it's like an Australian Aboriginal instrument. And I'm going from 0 to 1, and like the purpose of me doing that isn't to like become a master digi player. It's so that I can be a better painter. Like when I start, when I put down my, my dye work or my paintbrush work or my spray work, and I go and I pick up an instrument, the whole idea is that I'm building a new runway. Because ultimately I see image making and I see like video making and book writing and writing as kind of like this final like output. And a lot of the process happens in the day to day. It's that routine. So I'm one of the people who would definitely always say routine is the way to go. Like I try to like do the same thing as much as I can, so when I wake up every day, have a cup of tea. After my tea, I might wash the dishes, do something mundane. And then I might sit down for 2 hours, code. After I code, probably walk the dog. And that's my whole runway. You know what I'm saying? Like when I don't do that, like, that's when I'm like, oh shit. Now I can't. I try to go to the studio and I'm like, you feel like you haven't done something. So, I built runways. When I'm creatively dry, I'm like, my runway must be off. Like I need to get back into some type of routine. So, I'll probably look up a calisthenics routine and be, 5-day calisthenics routine. And then I'll do that and then program myself. And once I do that, I can, keep going. And a lot of times it happens in other creative formats. So, like when I mentioned I do sonics, I'm really into like ambient music. Aphex Twin is like one of my favorite artists, like sonic artists. So like I'll just, a lot of times I'll pick up, one of my instruments or Ableton and just mess around and make something that I like, but a lot of people be like, what the fuck is this? Especially people from back home. I know they be looking at it, like,
that's what they do.
The fuck is he doing now? So, I always have kind of been that person, like I've always been kind of, ask about me. What does Cam do? Like, I don't know what the fuck you do. Some computer shit.
Looking up stuff for you was a thing. I was like, hold on, is this a real person? Literally that. But definitely I run into a very similar thing when it comes to, I think it's expanding your mind when you're picking up a new skill and you're picking up something else to kind of broaden it to the thing that you said that I felt like it was a gift when you said like, I'm learning this didgeridoo to be a better painter, you know what I mean? Sometimes I find like when I'm feeling like dry, I might meditate or I might throw in an ebook and it's something that will resonate with me that I'm supposed to get, that I'm supposed to hear, or I'll listen to like, I watch professional wrestling, but I'll listen to the professional wrestling podcasts, but they're more like comedy podcasts that were of wrestling I've seen like forever ago, like 20, 30 years ago. Right. And I'm like, wow, that's funny. And I'll just find it on loop. And I'm like, this is satiating me, but also it's giving me techniques on how to be a better podcaster, how to do what I do better. So it's entertaining me while and informing me. And it's great. It's great. Because like right now, I think like the books that I'm kind of rocking with right now is a lot of the Robert Greene stuff, like 48 Laws of Power.
48 Laws, yeah.
But the main thing that I'm keying in on right now is Be Water, My Friend, Shannon Lee's book about her dad, about Bruce Lee. And it's just basically Bruce Lee philosophy. It's like, yo, tell me more. Give me all of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take that one up.
So I got one more question before I get into these rapid fire ones. And this one is, you got to ask, visual artists this one. What are the 3 most used colors in your palette and why?
Orange. Orange. Why orange? It's such like a safe color. Sure. So I look at I'm a psych-minded person. I look at a lot of psychology, especially when I'm making artwork. Orange is such a safe color. You know, we recognize it as like, from like the fire, what the fuck is it?
The vest, yeah.
Yeah, like the fire vest or the orange cone, in society, we recognize it like societally as a safe color. And then also it's a reference to the sun. Everything I'm going to say is basically sunset colors. So,
the Orioles, they're a safe win. No.
Yeah, the Orioles, safe win, shout out the Colts. So yeah, I would say orange for sure. And then I go a lot for like, kind of like this dusty rose pink. And then this lilac blue. So when I use the dusty rose pink, I always like how it mixes with that blue specifically. I feel like I'm giving away my shit right now, but yeah,
I'm taking notes.
I like how they mix, bro. It's crazy because, like I feel like when I make nice pieces of work and then people see it, I start to see more people using those tones and I love it, but it's also like, I'm competitive a little bit. So
taking my shit, man. What you doing?
Bro, what the fuck are you doing? So
it's like your dad earlier with the camera. Like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, hey, what the fuck? Like, why your pictures look like my pictures, bro? That bouquet, you on 1.4. So now, anyway, so I use like dusty pink, lilac blue, or lilac purple rather. And when they mix, they make these very nice, like muted tones, which are very close to like the sunset feel. So I would say like that orange is very predominant and consistent kind of with my design system, if you want to call it, or like I kind of have like my my consistent stuff. I like certain fonts and all that stuff. So yeah, I would say those are my 3, and I won't say much more than that.
Okay. Those are legit though. Those are legit. So now it's time for rapid fire. And this is only 3 questions for rapid fire. And pretty much,
I feel like I'm waiting for a bomb drop.
That'd be great if I could throw that in. Probably put it in post. So with the rapid fire questions, essentially they're like kind of like the brief answers or what have you. And you don't have to add any extra context. But it's more so like in that moment, what's that answer for you? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. So the first question, how many hours of sleep do you get per night?
Between 7 and 9.
Okay. Yeah. I was expecting less for a minute. I was just like, all right.
So I wake up every morning around 6 a.m. and then I usually will sit there, think about something, maybe check when go right back to sleep. And then sleep for like 2 hours. I used to not sleep when, especially like 2016, bruh.
Yeah.
Whew, I was up.
Since you said this earlier, I worked this one in there. Since you had some aspirations to go into the culinary arts.
Mm-hmm.
What is your go-to meal right now? What are you making?
Go-to meal? Shit, man, I'll be cooking.
Like you said, former fat kid.
Shit, damn, that's a hard question. Actually, I can say what I just made. I use a wok a lot. I make a lot of stir fries, so I get real creative and mixy in the kitchen. I just made this crazy. So I'm vegan too. I made this crazy like Alfredo sauce with broccoli, and I feel like I'm going to keep making that. That's going to become a staple. I'm in the process of recreating and writing down the recipe. And then, so I would say that's a new go-to, but before that, it would usually just be like my chili, like crazy chili, like 5-bean goulash that my grandma,
nice.
I took from my grandma. Yeah.
I'm a bean guy.
Yeah, bro. 5 beans.
Oh yeah. This is the last one. I got for you. What was the last song that you listened to?
Damn, bro. So if I'm being honest, because I was going live for a minute. Because I was like,
oh, please do.
No, I'm not even going live, bro. The last song I listened to the first track, the first 2 tracks on The Weeknd's new album. And then I paused the second song. I think it's called Gasoline or something like that. Gasolina. Yeah. I don't know. I paused it because it was getting on my nerves. It's just like, it's a good, I mean, I love The Weeknd. I'm a huge Weeknd fan.
Same.
But I think that I just need to listen to it driving or something. It was something about sitting right here in the moment and listening to the album. I think I might need to like put that one on the car. Like it just is like real upbeat, maybe clean the house or some shit. But yeah, before that I was listening to Aphex.
I need to get a gas mask or an oxygen mask and just listen to Take My Breath Away like over and over again. Like it's just what I'm doing at this point.
Just get in the character.
Yes, get in the character. So that's all the questions I have, but I want to invite you to plug. Where can he find you at online? And again, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. On the internet, where am I? I'm on Instagram. I'm on Arena. I do a lot of documentation on Arena, like mood boarding, are.na/Kameron A. Robinson. And yeah, just hit me on Instagram. Got questions, DMs open. Got coding questions. You need some help with some codes, or I don't know, man. I'm bad at plugging.
Oh, I mean, I'm going to be hitting you up like, yo, I need some coding.
Yeah. You need some design tips. You need some recommendations on some chairs. You need some audio loops. Shit, you need some design consultation, font choices. I got you. I'm your guy.
One-stop shopping.
Yeah. I mean, I know what I'm good at. I'll say that. I know what I'm good at. I have an eye for aesthetic. So yeah, I would love to maybe be a creative director one day. It might be my next thing. We'll see.
Sounds good. So there you have it, folks. I want to close out there. So for just the talented, the analytical, the creative Kameron Robinson, I am Rob Lee saying that there is art in and around your city. You just got to look for it.